So hello and welcome to Jacob Anderton,
Hello.
who is an actor who's very, very well known in the independent industry, known for both the quality of his work and the amount of work he does as well. It's hardly a week goes by you don't see a new film that's got Jacob Anderton in it.
Oh, bless you, mate. Yeah.
And he's what I call a self-made man in acting. I think a huge amount of what he's achieved is through his own efforts. And what I'd like to do now is just to introduce you, Jake, and just say, can you tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, and personally, professionally, and
You're making me blush, mate. You're making me blush. Stop with that. Yeah. So I'm Jacob, as you said, I suppose I've got a slightly different story and a slightly different path to I think a lot of guys that we work with or have worked with, in the sense that so I'm my family are originally from the East End of London, and I was born in Essex, and I lived there for the sort of first section of my life up until I was about 9 or 10, I think. And then we moved to Yorkshire because of my dad's work. So he was based at a company in Manchester, and he was having to travel up and down a lot. And we ended up in a little town in West Yorkshire called Pontefract, which some people will know, near Leeds. There's not a great deal there. It is where they make Haribo, though. So there's that. That's quite cool. Haribo the sweets, and on like a sunny day, it actually smells of sweets. So that's it's an interesting thing. But then, eventually I was there for a while, and I always loved acting. So I did it at school, and obviously did it in college. And then I was a little bit uncertain, probably about how good I was, for one thing, and also I was probably a little bit underconfident in the sense of, like, I didn't think that drama school was a good fit for me. I was a bit intimidated by it, I'll be honest, I think, at that age. So I ended up doing a degree in Newcastle in drama and script writing at Northumbria University, which it was good. To be honest, I was a bit of a, I mean, at 17, 18, I mean, there'd be a lot of people similar to me, but I was a bit naive, I guess, and a little bit sort of, I went to Newcastle because a lot of my mates were going to Newcastle from Yorkshire. And I heard, at the time, I wanted to sit with my pals and have a good time, and also maybe pursue a little bit of what I wanted to do. So this course seemed to fit the bill. So I moved to Newcastle when I was 18, and pretty much I've been here ever since. Which is
so you're based in Newcastle, and you have been.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I live in Newcastle now, and it's just, I mean, my family and my mum and dad, God love them, they're wonderful people, but they've never really had much money, not much excess money. We never wanted for anything, there's people who had much harder upbringings than I did, and I'm very aware of that, but there was not much excess money, so there wasn't, but what they have given me through pure fluke, I guess, is my dad now lives sort of not far from Manchester, and my mum and dad are separated now. My mum lives sort of near Leeds, and then my extended family, uncles and aunties and all that sort of thing, are still in London. So it's a bit of a fluke in terms of I have beds to crash in, which is probably one of the reasons why being up here has worked for me a little bit more than potentially what it might have done. But so I mean, it's funny because a lot of guys, obviously, my agent's in London, and you go and work on films, and obviously, understandably, a great deal of people live in London, and they always think that when I say, "Where do you live?" and they're expecting me to say, "I don't know, Hackney or whatever," and I go, I live in Newcastle," and they all sort of think it's a million miles away, but it's not. It's always worked for me because. You can jump on a train, and the trains are sort of, well, especially now, they're about 2 hours 40 into King's Cross. And certainly my experience is, I mean, there was once I was staying in the East End of London, and I had a job in the far West End, and it took me about 2 hours something to get across London. And I was
like, get to Newcastle. Yeah,
exactly. This is the thing. So it sort of always made sense for me. It's it's cheaper up here. So, it means that me and my my long-suffering partner have can have a bit of a life up here. And particularly in the early days when you know what it's like when you're trying to get started and you barely make anything, doing these jobs. And
the early days when you're trying to get started, you barely make anything. This is what I'm quite interested in. There's two very important things that have come up so far. One is that you weren't sure how good you were. This is your feeling. And what's interesting is I can't remember where it was. I was talking to somebody in an education context where they say there's a lot of people who don't, in whatever profession, there's a lot of people who don't do things well because they don't have the ability to see if they're doing things badly. And the quality of doubting your own work is one of the things when you look at it, and therefore is the main cornerstone of improving it and thus developing a high level of quality and skill in what you're doing. So it's just interesting because amongst the acting community that I know, you have a reputation as being a very, very good actor. And it's just interesting that somebody who's known and seen and appreciated as a very good actor is somebody who didn't just think they were superb in the first place. It's somebody who thought, oh, well, I'm not sure how good I am. And as a result
I still don't think I find it very hard to, on the rare occasions that someone like yourself very kindly sort of says, you're good at what you do. I still think I find that quite hard to digest. And, I know many actors are the same, but I definitely think that, I'm probably my biggest critic. I think that I'll never be able to sit and watch something that I've done or sit at a screening without sort of going, oh, I don't know if I'd have done it like that again. Or, I'd have loved one more at that, which I think every actor probably said, I'd love one more take. But I really appreciate you saying that, mate. It's kind of you to hear, but it's weird. I've never really, like you say, when I was at college and we're doing the play, we do various plays and what have you. And I don't know, I don't know if it's something about moving. So I moved from Essex and I come from a very tight family. We're still very tight, old-fashioned East End family on my dad's side. It's quite a big family, and I was very comfortable, I think, as a child in that environment, and then being pulled out of that and then going to Yorkshire. It was quite dramatically different, and I wonder if there was something in that I was having to sort of rebuild who I was almost as a person, and I think that maybe so therefore I lost confidence in everything that I loved doing. I was trying to work towards fitting in a new sort of community and new group of people. So interesting.
So just going back to the second point, first point being that you're an outstanding actor, which is one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you. And it's not just me that says that, and all the directors think that because they're giving you up. And you started from a position where you were miles away from London. You were like everybody else who hasn't had the privilege of going to one of the elite drama schools, and you don't have parents who have influence in the film industry. You're just like every other guy, who's having to struggle more or less from nowhere. But then you've worked your way up to a position where now you're getting, excellent work in many different places. And what was the means by which you went from being unknown in the north of England to being a sought after actor for pretty much every independent movie that's being made in London at the moment? So tell us how did you approach reaching out to people?
So it was quite interesting. So when I left uni, so I graduated, I did my degree in drama and script writing, which I enjoyed. I mean, to be honest, from the conversations I've had with people that went to, I don't know, RADA or Lambda, it sounds like we covered similar stuff, just with less prestigious teachers. And I enjoyed it. The one thing it taught me really is that I wasn't a writer. I think that maybe made it quite clear. There were some people that that was on my course that were fantastic writers and had these beautiful characters and all this, and it didn't really lead me on to thinking, oh, okay, I'm a writer. It actually sort of really honed my vision on, I like acting. This is sort of more what I would like to pursue. So when I graduated, I started doing, I guess what most people do. I started to do plays, basically in the area, so in the northeast. So I was doing all sorts, really, pantomimes to sort of. I did a few Shakespeare tours, which with northeast companies, which were fantastic, and those sort of things. And then somewhere along the line, I hadn't really done any filming at all, none at all. And then there was a casting page. It was specifically just for the northeast, and it was more for student films, festival films, that sort of thing. Free work. And something popped up, and it was for a student film, and it's like, we're looking for an actor to play the lead part. And it was like a comedy. It was like a murder mystery thing. Sort of what's that film? That great film with it'll come to me in a minute. Anyway, so I was like, oh well, let's have a go. Let's see what happens. So it was a great guy called James Campbell, who I actually work with to this day. He was a mature student at the time. He was in his 30s, and I just graduated, so I was sort of wet behind the ears, sort of 2022, I guess, 2022. And I applied for this role, and we did a little read through over whatever it was, and I got the gig. And it was no not paid or anything like that, but we did this short film, and I loved it. Like, I absolutely loved it. And it was literally Jim, a camera, some guy holding a boom, and that was sort of it, really, But I just got the bug, and I liked the idea of film acting, and it was different, and it was the subtleties and all this sort of thing. So from then on, I was like, right, this is good. I enjoyed this. So I just started applying for every student film that came up around in the local area. Obviously, I was well aware that I wasn't going to get paid for any of this stuff. So that's what I did. And I just applied for these roles. Some of them came off. And then eventually I just worked towards building that showreel. And my first complete showreel was entirely built in the northeast of England. And entirely built primarily from student films. If not, there was a couple of festival shorts, I think, in there, but all free work. But it was interesting because there was some of my friends that I went to uni with, quite, in their head, quite rightly, they graduated and was like, right, we're going to London, we're going to start working. And then they had this problem, which I know exists, where they were applying to student films, free work in London, getting there, and there would be, I don't know, 600 other people going for this one role. Whereas what I found in the northeast is people were literally begging you to do, please, can you just come and do it? So that part was interesting, because I managed to build my first showreel off free work, and I to a certain degree, at one point, I was having sort of the pick of, oh, this is an interesting role, I'll do this, and then, oh, there's another one that's come along, but I've done something similar, so maybe I won't do that one. So I had this unique sort of opportunity to work on things that I found interesting. And then what I did, so once I had that sort of showreel in place, then I decided, purely through Facebook, I just started to see directors that were doing feature films, because I thought, okay, well, I've done some shorts, they seem to have gone okay, I've got a showreel, let's have a go at maybe see if I can get in a feature. So I was messaging a few guys and various bits and pieces, and a couple sort of almost happened, but then, fell down, or, it would be a little part that, you sort of maybe got cut, or this sort of thing. And then the first guy, I had this amazing moment where, so John Langridge, who I'm eternally grateful to and for, he's a wonderful, wonderful man. And so this was 2017, I think. So not too long ago, really. But I was desperate to try and get like a good role in a feature film. Yeah. And he posted something, and I think he was doing a crowdfunder or something, but he posted a video. And I did what I always did. I just thought, right, okay, I'll chance my arm, So I messaged him on Facebook, was like, hey, mate, looks really, really interesting. I would love to be considered for something. Here's my showreel. Here's my details, buddy, blah. And it just so happened, by some kind of weird twist of fate, that the guy that was supposed to be playing this role in 13 Graves, which was the name of the film, had pulled out on that day for some reason. He had a different job, or And I sent this email sort of at the opportune moment where John watched it and went, "Oh, this kid here, this kid looks like who I was sort of picturing in my head for this character." So then followed a period of time, roughly about 6 months or so, maybe 7 months, where John, God love him, so he sent me out. He said, "Okay, here's some of the script. Do me some tapes." So I sent him some tapes back. He was like, "Yeah, I love it. This is great. You're who I was sort of picturing." So then he went back to the distributor, who had already been signed on at this stage, and you know, he was like, I found who I want to play Billy in the film, who was, you know, one of the leads in the film.
That's a good film. I've seen actually. Yeah.
Oh, thanks,
it's a good film.
And they sort of went, well, who is he? And they went, well, I don't know. He's just some kid. He's like, you know, I've never seen him before, but I quite like it in the scene. And they went, no way, no chance. We've got to try and sell this film, right? So they want someone with, you know, a bit of bankability, I guess.
Yeah.
So God love him. Apparently there was a period of sort of 6-7 months where they were sort of showing him actors. What about this guy? He's quite good, you know. He's done this. And John was going, no, he's not quite right. And this went on, and eventually, I think it was literally 2 or 3 days before principal photography started on the film. I got a phone call, and I was in Newcastle. I was about to get on, like, we've got a tubey sort of thing in Newcastle, the Metro, and I was about to get on the Metro. I was going down on the Underground, and I got this phone call, and they went, "You've got the part. Finally, we've managed to convince them you've got the part, but you need to get to Eastbourne." Like now. So I had this frantic thing. I think I took the express bus, because I think the train at the time was I was really, obviously at the time I was absolutely skint as well, and I think the train was quite expensive, so I had to get this coach all the way down the country to Eastbourne.
How long a journey was that?
I think the coach was quite long. I think it was like, started going to London Victoria on the coach, and I think it was one of those coaches that stops everywhere. So I feel like it was like sort of 6 or 6.5 hours or something like that. And then I got the little train down to Eastbourne. But then from that moment on, I mean, that film, I mean, you know, that film, I think really, for me, I think I love that. I really enjoy the film. I think it's one of those films that really shows what you can do with very little money. I think John's great with those sort of things, you know. Where do we put, you know, and the stories that he tells. I mean, that story essentially was set in a wood, you know, so there wasn't a great deal of, you know, your production value sort of there. And it's more about the characters, and and that opportunity that John gave me, I always feel incredibly lucky for, because, you know, you have these moments where people say, oh, you know, a door opens or something, and it just felt like I'd been given this opportunity, and it just opened just a crack, a little door into here's guys in London that are making films. You know? And that was sort of how I got my foot in, I guess.
Yeah. No, it was amazing opportunity. As I remember, it's a while ago since I saw it, but the film it reminds me of was, I think, Kill List or something, that you have strong
similar
characters,
vibe. That's it.
Strong plot, and a slightly cross-genre thing where you sort of, you know, you're not confined just to straightforward crime. You know, you're sort of crossing forward, and the journey the characters go and take you through sort of a little bit of, you know, straightforward, gritty drama. Then it gets a little bit horrific, bit of psychological thriller, and a bit of horror. You know, it's a very it's a heady mix of.
I think John's great at that. I think he's great at writing these scripts where, as an audience member, you think, oh, I know where this is going. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I didn't expect that, you know, that sort of thing. You know, because like you say, you've got this in 13 Graves, you know, it sort of sets it up as, I guess, a sort of a British gangster sort of flick. You know, you got these sort of Cockney gangsters, I guess, and they go into this wood, and then all of a sudden it sort of segues, and we end up in almost like a Wicker Man folk horror vibe. And it's it was great fun to do. And like I say, I'll always be incredibly grateful, and I mean, he knows this. But he really did. He gave me an opportunity where, understandably as well, many people wouldn't have done, because I get it, man. You know, I think once we've been in it for a little while, you start to understand the business side of things, and I completely understand why at that point in time the distributor would have been like, well, no, like, why are we going to get some kid who no one's heard of, has never done anything before, to come and play a lead role in this film that you know we're invested in? You know, it just makes no sense. Very lucky.
So just as a little tangent, can you talk briefly about maybe any of the acting process you do, how you go about preparing character? There's one particular. It's always easy to see when somebody's talking. It's easy. You get it. It's easier to sort of see a character, but I think you see really quality acting is when they're not saying, an actor isn't saying anything, and you get a lot of story told. And there was one. So we were in Ross Boyask's Vengeance film. So I Am Vengeance, the first one. I had a small part in that, and I saw you in the second part, and you stood out in one of the scenes. You weren't saying anything, but I looked at him and I thought, you can see that guy's living the life, going, you could see stuff going on. There's a story just being told by the character in there. So it would be interesting, just because most people are going to be watching this through the V show cards. They're going to be actors, and there's two things we're interested in. One is getting work, and the other is doing the work. And the marketing side of things is something I'm very interested in pursuing in more detail with you. But as an aside, as a tangent, I'll be interested to hear a little bit about the sort of process that you use to sort of preparing a character, getting it embedded in there, and then going forward with that. Just as a professional interest, really. How what sort of process do you use, or does it vary each time? Or how do you go about it?
It's interesting. For me, I mean, I do a little bit nowadays. I do with some younger guys in some, particularly up here. There's certain areas that are sort of, what's the word here? Less privileged areas in and around where I live now. And I do some teaching. So I do some courses for film acting, and I've gone into this a little bit with them. And I've always said that I'm of the belief, and somebody might prove me wrong and tell me, but I'm of the belief that I don't think there's a right or wrong way to act. I think it's sort of, some people, something will work for them, and other people it won't work for them, but a different technique will work for them. For me, I've always felt like it begins obviously with the script. And I think that I like to think that I try and act from instinct, if that makes sense, from the gut. So
yeah, it does, yeah.
I'll try, and so when I read the script first, I'll try and take from that first time, okay, what am I getting from this? That immediately I go, okay, I get who this guy is, and maybe try and tie that into something that I know about myself, or that somebody that I know that I can maybe relate to that a little bit. For example, I've just done Give Them Wings with Sean Cronin. Yeah. Which is
winning awards all over the place.
Well, yeah, it's just sort of started off, but like Dan in that. So Dan, who plays Paul in that, I cannot wait for, because it's a very similar story actually to what I just told you about 13 Graves. So Dan, I actually know Dan from local. He's a Geordie lad from Newcastle, and he just chanced his arm. He got this audition, and I cannot wait for people to see it, because honestly, he blew me away in that film. He's incredible, and he really did his sort of work in terms of, we got to meet the guys we were playing, which was fantastic. But I think when I first read that script, I was like, I could relate it to a certain part of me. Now, I used to do, unfortunately we lost him, but I used to do a bit of care work for a lad who, he was, I say care work, he was like my best mate, really. He was a younger lad. He was sort of 18, 19. And most of the people in his life were women. And I came in, and we just used to go to the cinema or something. He didn't need a lot of, hands-on care. I just took him out, and it never felt like work or, but anyway, I'd done that for some time. And this script came up, and I read it, and it was Paul's best mate. Now, Paul in the script he had childhood meningitis, so he's in a wheelchair, and he's quite heavily disabled. And I just got who this guy was. But it was like, again, it was that sort of gut thing of like, I read the script and was like, I recognize elements of who this person is and what he's saying and what he's doing, and then tried to tie that back to me. And then I guess I try to, with the instinct thing, I try to, when we're actually on set and shooting something, I do my very best to be as present as I can possibly be at that moment in time, so I think all actors, will work towards that. But I think that thing of being like, if something new happens in the scene, just try and be as comfortable enough to just go with it, see what happens, you know. Which is easier said than done sometimes, and I've definitely failed several times trying to do that as well. But yeah, I think for me, it's hard to, like, the process thing. I would tie it down to me that I try and work from instinct, try and work with a character, and try and tie it into a little bit of who I am. Or if it's not someone that I am, is there a person I know that is like this? You know.
Yeah.
Go with that. Does that help? I don't know if that was a.
No, it really does. No, it really does, and it's very clear that you know, that process. It sounds like you're looking for clues immediately when you read the script, and then you're finding what resonates with what you understand in a very truthful way from your own experience, or something that you've experienced close to you, something that you don't have to think about, something that you understand because it's part of your experience, and then you use those as the cornerstones of how to understand who you are in the context of the film and what's going on. And then you make sure that, as in life, you're fully present as much as you can be, so that your reactions are to what's going on in front of you. They're not trying to overlay a sculptured character and performance on top of somebody else. You're actually aware. So if something's going a bit wrong, you're reacting to that in the time, so that it's a real live thing of you interacting with a human being. So I mean, that's a very clear elucidation.
It's a weird thing. I once said to a young girl that I was teaching, and you know, she was from a real sort of musical theatre background, so she was a singer, dancer, you know, brilliant, very, very talented. And I sort of said to her, you know, I said, here's a weird thing. I said, now not all actors are like this. I said, I kind of am, and I understand it. I'm one of these people that I don't like to overly learn the script. So, like, when I go into a scene, I still want to be trying to reach for the words a little bit in my head. So I know it enough I know roughly what I'm saying, but then I don't want to rehearse it. So, because I feel like one of my downfalls is I potentially would slip into the trap of, this is exactly how I do this, because I've rehearsed it, and this is in my head. So I said to this girl, I was like, look, some actors don't like to fully learn the script. And I think her face was just like, whoa, you know, like that's crazy. But I tried to explain to her, well, what I mean by that is, certainly, know roughly what you're saying, but there's also something quite freeing in still having that process of reaching and searching for the bit that comes next. And it almost allows it to be a little bit more natural as well, because obviously, as I said to her, you know, day-to-day conversation, we're constantly reaching for, well, what am I saying next, and all this sort of thing. So yeah.
No, fantastic. They're very lucky to have you teaching them. There's sometimes a lot of, you know, you can read textbooks, but you know, that simple process of looking for the clues and finding what resonates instinctively, and then building on that, and then being very present, sounds like a 5-minute acting class that is probably as valuable as 3 years at drama school, actually. But
well, it's funny because I started this course up here so I did this thing I've started recently. It's going quite well, actually, but I've started this thing. It's called I've called it the Showreel Startup, right? And it's like they're all sort of 14 to 18, some of which are really talented. There's a couple of guys there that have already got agents, and you know, they're all eyeing up drama schools, and they're incredibly talented people. So I feel quite honored to have been invited to do this lesson. But my whole thing was like, you know, when I was growing up, certainly you probably was the same, and you was going to, even like when I did my degree, I don't know what it's like at drama school, but screen acting just wasn't spoke about. Like, very briefly, it was like, oh, and there's this thing that you can do on a camera, by the way, that's, you know, swept on the carpet. So I was like, you know, I felt like when I first ever stepped onto a film set, it was incredibly daunting, because it's like, it's entirely different. It's so new. You've got all these people shouting random things. And so I was like, right, I want to come up with this idea of, you know, we're going to do this course. And the idea of the course is, number one, that they can, you know, understand the sort of, the differences, I guess, between screen acting and acting for the stage. And then I want them to try and, I'm going to try and take away that sort of daunting element, so that when they first arrive on a professional set, which I'm sure a lot of them will, it's less, they can focus on what they're doing, because it's less like, you know, the processes are less alien. So that's sort of my intention behind it. Yeah. So hopefully we just started. I'm still sort of working out. It's a bit of a learning curve for myself as well. But hopefully, in a couple of weeks' time, we're gonna shoot a short film with the guys, and it means that they can all take a bit of something to go away with.
Yeah. Okay, so just looking back in summary of what we've got so far is, you studied, you wanted to do it. This is the main thing, is that firstly there was a lot of will. You knew you wanted to do it. There was passion, I suppose. There was passion to do it, and then you grafted. Is probably the best way to do it. You did all the little local tours. You did all the Shakespeare in the theatres. Then you got a little insight and a little taste of film, and then it was like then you tasted blood and there was no letting go. And then you grafted again. So you grafted again for no pay in the student film world, and built up enough work there to make a show reel. And then the show reel, then importantly, what you did then is that you looked at where you were, and then you looked up to the next level. You looked up at the next rung, and you let go of the one level, and then you looked up, and then you went for that, and you displayed a combination of both self-confidence and humbleness. You wrote to people and you said, hi. Basically, you were saying, consider me for something, and this is my work, which is a humble way of approaching. But you had the self-confidence to send that out, and then by knocking on those doors, one of those doors opened up, and that got you to the next level, and that opened the door up a little crack. Now it opened up a little crack. So that's a bit of luck. And so, what did you do from there to take it to the next level? How did you go about things? In what way did you approach? How did you identify where you wanted to go, and what did you do to get there?
I think similarly, I think it's one of those things where, and I think looking back, it's one of those. It's quite. I guess it's quite an annoying thing. I guess but it's that strange thing of sort of work begets work, in terms of. So I did 13 Graves, and from that point I was like, okay, I've taken a tiny little I've put almost like just my toe over the line of this new world in London. And from doing 13 Graves, I worked with some great guys. Kevin Leslie was the lead in 13 Graves, who is fantastic, great guy. And so immediately after that, Patrick Ryder, who's another fantastic director, was about to do a short film called The Code, which I'd seen Patrick's shorts, and actually I'd done the same thing that I did with John, the old sort of email, messenger on Facebook years ago with Patrick, and quite understandably, never got a reply because he was probably getting it from everyone. And I, totally get that. And so suddenly there was this opportunity where Kev was going to play the lead in this short film with Patrick. His character had a brother in the film, and when we were doing 13 Graves, there was sort of this running joke that everyone was like, "Oh, you two can be brothers." So he very kindly sort of put me forward to Patrick, and we ended up doing that, and that was almost immediately after 13 Graves, not very long at all. And then just it was like you say, it was that whole sort of thing of just starting to okay, I've got a foothold here, just starting that grafting process. So and then I Am Vengeance 2 came along, which again I was incredibly lucky, really, because it was the same distributor, the same production company, Evolutionary Films, as 13 Graves. So there was an email went round, a bit of a round robin, I think, to some actors for you was there, wasn't it, table read for the second film?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So there was a round robin, and I was up here, and I was like, I replied and said, "Yep, I'll be there. No worries at all." So got the train down, stay with my family, what have you. Very lucky to be able to do that. So, went into that, did the table read, and then fortunately enough, off the back of that, they offered me a part in the film. And then I think for the other directors, it's just been like trying to put my name and my work about as much as I possibly can. I had a really bizarre. By the way, before I tell this story, I have no idea how this happened to this day. Right, this is a very weird thing. But the first year I ever went to can, right, was the year after we'd finished making 13 Graves. So it would have been only a few years, 2018. Okay, so I'd never been before. And then, you know, the guys were like, oh, you have to do this accreditation thing. And I was like, oh, no. And like, you have to put all your credits and all these sort of things. And you send your show reel and they'll judge you. And they'll judge you whether you can, you got it. And I was like, oh,
whether
Christ.
you're worthy.
That's it. So I sent all my stuff over and I was going, oh, I just got a feeling. I've got a feeling that, you know, it's not going to come back or whatever. Anyway, it came back and I was like, oh, fantastic. I was chuffed about that. And then about a few days later, maybe 3 or 4 days later, I got another email. And it was in broken English because the woman was obviously French, you know, so she was in sort of semi-broken English, and she sort of said, you know, it was like, congratulations, something selected, something else, talent corner, something. And I was like, what? I don't even know what this is. So I emailed her back and was like, hiya, I just wanted to check what is this, you know?
Yeah.
And she sent back this, you know, quite broken English reply, and, you know, much to my detriment. I wish I could, but, you know, my French is terrible. So I had no idea. So I didn't really know what it was. I had no idea what it was. So anyway, I went to the festival, and there was this thing. It said Talent Corner. I said, oh, I had an email about this Talent Corner thing. And I said to John, look, I had this email. So John said, okay, well, let's go and find it. It was in the marsh. He was like, let's go and find this Talent Corner. Just see what's going on. So I get to this thing, and it was a counter, and there was this almost like this big interactive screen, right? That was like, I don't know, it must have been maybe 7 foot tall sort of thing, you know, a little bit wider. And it just had this circulating thing of headshots going around.
Yeah.
And mine was one of them, right? And it just came around.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this and going, I don't know what this is. So I went onto the counter. I was like, hiya, I wonder if you can help me. She was like, oh, it's you. You're on the screen. I was like, yeah. I was like, what is it? And she went, oh, well, what it is, and this woman, you know, thankfully for me, she was English, and she sort of said, well, what it is when they sent off the accreditations, they've hand selected 20 actors that are between the age of 18 and 28, I believe, and I just snuck in 18 and 28, that we pick and then we display for directors and producers to come along, and then if anyone has an interest, they can stop, and we will sort of tell them about you, and then we'll send you an email about who's inquired. And then she said, oh, and we've got this big sort of meet and greet event for all the guys that are involved on the Tuesday, let's say the next Tuesday. Now I booked my flight home on the Monday. and this is, like I said before, I think this is one of those things where, you know, I've never had much money, and I was like, and I was just sitting there going, I don't know if, and I literally, I knew I couldn't. There was nothing I could do. My hands were tied. I couldn't. I knew that again, I love them to bits, but I you know, my parents, they're lovely people, but my mum's not the sort of person where I can phone her and go, can you buy me another flight home from Cannes? It just, you know, it's just not a doable thing. So I had to leave it, and I was gutted about it. I was really, really upset, but there were a few emails that came back about, oh, so-and-so inquired still. But yeah, that was an amazing thing. And I've sort of managed to, I don't know, use it as a little bit of a marketing tool, I guess, over the years. So if I'm writing an email now, I always sort of mention, oh, featured at the Talent Corner at Cannes, even though I didn't know what it was at the time, you know. So yeah, that was, I guess it was a little bit of a bizarre, but turned out to be a bit of a highlight of my career so far, I guess.
Yeah. So something you said earlier was putting your name and your work about.
Yes.
If somebody has no idea what that means or how to do it,
do you know what it is? I don't know if I have a surefire way, but all I've ever done is I always try and be myself. So if it's through email or over Facebook Messenger, where it seems to be a lot of the time for me, because most of the work that I've gathered up over the years has sort of come through me, I guess, more so than work that, you know, has come from agents or other places. And yeah, I very similarly, just going back to what I did with John and 13 Graves, it's just a case of I'll message someone and usually start with, "Hiya, mate." Completely unfriendly. My name's Jacob. I'm an actor. I'm really interested in what you're doing at the moment. It looks great. Always, I think for me, a little tip, I guess, if anyone's interested, would be always actually look at what they're doing. I think that there's people sometimes make that mistake of just messaging everyone without, blanket response to everyone without actually looking what they're making. But I think if you have a look at what they're making, find the interest, and then messaging. I just try and be myself and just say, look, here's my details. Obviously, send the links. V-Show card has been incredibly useful. I found in the recent, since I signed up actually, and just send it over and just say, here's my stuff. Take a look, and I usually say I would love the chance to put myself on tape for the film. I don't think I would never say, I would love to be in this, because I think that's maybe a little bit presumptuous. I always say, I would love the opportunity to audition or to put myself on tape. Yeah.
It's interesting.
I hope that.
So being very specific and making sure that if you are saying you're interested, that's genuine, which means you've taken an interest in watching their stuff before you write it.
And also, maybe what I'll try and do as well, just to sort of keep it light, is like maybe, for example, so recently I did this a film with Steve Lawson called Ripper Untold. And years ago, funny enough, James Campbell, I was talking about, who gave me the first shoot film. When he graduated, we did a short fan film called Ripper, and it was a Batman flick. It was like set in Victorian London. It's based on this graphic novel called Gotham by Gaslight. It was fantastic. That was so much fun. But so when I applied for this feature role, I sort of kept it fairly light, and then sort of just said, oh, and here's a picture of me looking a bit creepy in Victorian London. Funny enough, I did this film called Ripper, and I sent a picture or something, just to try and tie it in and make it a bit more specific to what he's doing, I guess. I think sometimes it backfires, because I am one of these people where I probably sometimes should be a little bit more professional in my approach, probably.
Let me I'd say, so I'd stop you on your tracks right there, and then I think you're being yourself. I think that's one of the, I would say, just looking at it from the outside, that's one of the things that's probably stood you in best stead. It's refreshing. It's refreshing.
Oh, thanks, mate.
What better can you be? What better can you be than yourself? And I think that informality combined with the integrity, which is being genuine, and the humbleness as well. I think the results that you've got, I think, are a testament to the effectiveness of that approach. And I'd hate to see you change that for anything else.
Oh, bless you. Thanks, mate.
So that's clear about the strategy. But where did you find out who was doing what in the first place, and how did they come to your attention in order to be able to write to them? Well, that doesn't just come on the front page of the.
It's interesting, because I'm just really concerned, because I've realised the washing machine's on us. Is that going to? Can you hear that?
No, I can't hear it.
We're good. Give me a flag if it goes on the spin cycle or something. We might be in trouble.
All right. Okay.
So I think for me, I'm one of these people. I'm a little bit. I don't really like social media. I think from a sort of personal perspective, I find it quite hard to do this is nothing against anyone that does it, but I personally find it quite hard to do the selfies and all that sort of stuff and these sort of things. I struggle with that a little bit, and I probably should do it more. I think in our industry, I think it is a really useful tool. What I have found really interesting is, like, Facebook is, to me, I primarily use Facebook now really for work related stuff, I think, and West Ham. That's a different story. But work related stuff, I think, which is and I'll just try and keep an eye out for stuff that looks cool. Like, I think if you see a project, you go, oh wow, what they're doing there, that looks like great work, really interesting work, and then I'll add that person, and then if I feel like it's the right opportunity, then I'll do the email, the message, and just sort of say, hi, I think what you're doing looks fantastic. I would love the chance to potentially you know, work with you in the future, you know, put myself on tape, and just see what comes back. But I think that we, you know, we live in a, you know, a really fortunate time where obviously everyone is at your fingertips in a certain degree. And I think particularly in the indie world, in the indie film world, you know, we all have to use social media as a tool to market our products and our films anyway. So, you know, my advice would just be, look, if there's something that you've seen being made that you think looks interesting, or you would like to make something similar, or you like their style, or, you know, just message, just be really open and upfront and just say, look, I think what you're doing looks fantastic. You know, I would love the chance to work with you someday. Here's my stuff. Take a look, you know, and if you like it, great. I would love to take for you if anything comes up in the future, and just let that sit. Yeah, I think that's really what I do. And then occasionally, like for example, if I do a recut of my show reel or something, there'll be certain guys that I might message again and go, oh, hi again, by the way, I've just recut my show reel in case you're interested.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we live with we've got such a tool there. Yeah, that you know, we can find the people, or you certainly just respond to things you see. I don't think I've ever really gone out my way to I don't know, to dig through to find a particular guy. It's been more things that have, like, I've been scrolling through something and gone, oh, this looks cool.
Yeah.
I'll message them and see what happens.
Okay, that's really interesting. So quite Facebook orientated in that respect.
And it's interesting because I think this is a bit of a flaw, but I'm useless on Twitter. I'm terrible on Twitter. I just don't know why. I've just never really got a bit of a technophobe, to be honest. I mean, we had a technical problem before this started, but so I'm useless on Twitter. Instagram I do use, but primarily I use Instagram for, again, work related things. I'll sort of share posters or you know, little things like that, or like it might be, I don't know, day one on set. But I'm one of these guys where I wouldn't do it every single day. I would just be like, oh, day one, and then I'd probably do like just wrapped, you know, that sort of bookend. And then Facebook, Facebook is always been the tool for me. I think even from doing the student films back in the day, that's how I did it. And it's just the sort of pattern that I've formed now that it's a go. And I should definitely use I should definitely use Twitter and things much more. But yeah, I guess that's something I need to work on, definitely.
Yeah. And so how have you found these show cards useful, or in your
good, man, so good. And the reason I find it so useful is, and I know we've talked about this before, but it's just the fact that everything's there, so they don't have to. So if you're sending that to a director or a casting director or someone that's having a look at your stuff, they've got one link and everything's there, presented, laid out cleanly for them to see. And I just think it's interesting. I think you can put yourself across in a slightly better way. Like, I like the fact that you can attach other videos, so you can do your show reel, but then also, for example, like I think on my V show card, there's a sort of funny BTS clip from a documentary about something we made that I've put on, where I just think, oh, well, if they're interested, there's a little bit of my, I don't know, my sort of personality that's be able to, you can display it a little bit easily, you know, a little bit easier. But yeah, I just think it's great because, as I said before, it's clean. It's one click. They don't have to scroll through, because I think a lot of time, you know, these guys, they've got so many people that they're seeing, you know, it's the fact they've got, oh, click on that link, wait for that to load up. Okay, I've had a look at that, go back, click on that. I think it slows them down. Whereas if you've got one thing, bang, there it is. Everything's there for you to see. It's got to be, it's much easier for them to access it, I think.
Excellent. You know, that was one of the ideas. We wanted it to be literally the next best thing to meeting someone.
Yeah.
Best, you know, so, you know, you've got that overview, and within those extra videos, within a quick look through the social media feeds, within look at obviously the show reels and some of the production shots as well, so they can see you in different types of characters. Range of headshots as well. They should be able to get to know you as much as they possibly can, and get an impression of who you are as a person.
I think that definitely comes across, man. I think it really it's a really great idea, and I like I say, I genuinely found it really helpful. I mean, there's been things that same process of messaging guys this year where I've said, here's my stuff, and just put that one link on, and it's come back. I've actually had a couple of guys comment on, oh, that's really cool, that thing, so I think it's great, man. You can see why it's growing so rapidly. I think it's a really cool thing. Yeah.
Wonderful. So tell me, what's next for you at the moment? What have we got to look forward to you doing at the moment?
So as I mentioned before, earlier this year I just finished on Ripper Untold, which is looking good fun. That's looking really good. And then we've just been shooting a feature called Lore, Lore, which is an anthology horror film. But it's a really cool idea, written by Patrick Ryder and James Bush. They're sort of co-directing it.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. It's so much fun. It's sort of, you meet this guy at the beginning, and he starts telling this group around a campfire these stories, and you see each story play out. But there's sort of there's a ghost story, and then there's a monster story, and then there's a slasher story, and but it's great. And each story has a slightly different sort of tone to it. And I mean, like the one we did, for example, is we did the sort of the slasher story, and it was like a real 80s tongue-in-cheek, and it was just so much fun to shoot. And again, it looks like the stuff that they're coming back on the rushes just looks really, really good, sort of great production values. And then there's a few things that are sort of in the works at the minute. Hopefully, all being well, I'm supposed to start on a fantastic, honestly, this script I'm so looking forward to. There's a film called Harmony that myself and Katie Sheridan, I don't know if you know Katie Sheridan, she's amazing, brilliant actress. Go check Katie Sheridan out if anyone. But fantastic actress, and it's this fantastic sort of psychological thriller, one location pretty much. Can't really tell too much about that because I don't want to give the story away, but I'm really excited about that. So that hopefully will be June. I should be, all being well, working with John Langridge again this year. We're talking this morning, actually, maybe September, on his next feature, which I'm chuffed about because I've not worked with John since 13 Graves. And then potentially, again, a bit hush hush, but there might be something going on up in Scotland towards the end of the year, which is sort of it's a bit of a dream for me because I'm a bit of a history geek. So it's a sort of medieval sword swinging situation.
Oh, fantastic! So,
That's a bit of me. That's the one I've been waiting for.
Well, that's fascinating, and just want to say thank you very, very much indeed for taking the time to come and talk.
Mate, thank you so much for asking. Honestly, I was really honoured that you asked. So it's been a privilege. Thank you.
No, it's deeply appreciated, and absolute gold dust. Some of that strategy and fascinating.
Some of the ramblings.
Yeah. So we'll leave it there. Thank you very much again. I'm very much look forward to seeing you on our silver screen in the future. And some of these films sound fantastic. And I can't
Real
wait
pleasure.
to see
Thanks
them.
again, mate.
I can't wait till we work together again.
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
Right, I'm counting down the days. All
right. Okay. See you then. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, buddy.
Bye-bye.